For 4 long years, a dog patiently waited by the side of the road on the outskirts of Vancouver for his family to return. However, something extraordinary happened when Leo, a new employee at the nearby gas station, decided to intervene. Something surprising happened to him. Sadness invaded everyone's hearts. Only those who have a four-legged love will feel the real pain of today's story. Did this real story have a happy ending? No one expected when. Leo, a 23-year-old recently hired on the gas station team on the outskirts of Vancouver, Canada, began to notice something intriguing. Every morning, a golden retriever with a shiny golden coat, albeit somewhat dull due to lack of care, would regularly appear at a specific spot by the roadside nearby. Despite his robustness, the dog clearly showed signs of malnutrition in his ribs but remained steadfast in his place. Surprisingly, the commotion around him seemed not to affect him, and his deep, melancholic eyes remained fixed on some distant point, as if waiting for someone who would never return. This ritual unfolded with an almost ceremonial regularity from dawn until nightfall, deeply involving Leo in something mysterious. One day, during lunch in the gas station's break room, Leo finally decided to address the matter that had intrigued him for weeks. "Does anyone here know anything about that dog?" he asked, looking at the tired faces of his co-workers. In the uncomfortable silence, Paul, the most veteran among them, responded with a sigh, "Oh, you're talking about Buddy." Intrigued, Leo questioned how long he had been there and where he came from. Paul, scratching his beard, replied that Buddy had been there since he started working about 4 years ago. Every day in the same place, regardless of the weather. In fact, no one knew why. Maybe someone left him there, and the poor dog is still waiting for them to come back. The answer left Leo perplexed. 4 years had passed, and no one knew anything about him. No one tried to help him, Leo questioned. Jack, another co-worker, reported that some had tried to take him home, but he always came back. They called shelters, but he always escaped when they arrived. Leo remained silent, reflecting on the news. The idea that Buddy had spent so much time on the streets, facing Canada's harsh winters, broke his heart. Determined, he looked up and fixed his gaze on his co-workers. "I need to do something for him." The other employees, already accustomed to Buddy's presence, had no choice but to agree with Leo's resolution. On a morning when the first rays of sun were still struggling to warm the cold asphalt, Leo approached Buddy. The dog was in his usual spot, his golden eyes following the movement of cars. "Hi, Buddy," Leo said gently, keeping a safe distance not to scare the animal. Buddy turned his head to look, his melancholic gaze fixing on the young man. Over the days, Leo repeated this ritual, approaching Buddy, talking to him calmly, and offering him some food. Little by little, Buddy began to relax in his presence. On a special day, Leo reached out, and Buddy, after a moment of hesitation, allowed Leo to pet him behind the ears. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to Leo and to that abandoned dog who had spent so much time alone. One afternoon, after sharing a quiet meal and some playtime, Leo decided to try something different. "How about coming to my house, Buddy?" he proposed, fixing his eyes on the dog. Buddy observed but remained still. Despite this, Leo decided to try carefully. He put a collar around Buddy's neck and started walking toward his house. Buddy obeyed, but when they reached the door, the dog stopped. No matter how much Leo encouraged him, Buddy refused to enter. The next day, Buddy was back in his usual spot on the road, as if nothing had happened. Leo tried to take him home several times more, but the result was always the same. Buddy refused to enter, and as soon as he had the chance, he returned to his spot on the road. Despite the frustrations, Leo did not give up the cause. He continued to take care of Buddy, providing him with food and dedicating time to his new friend. His determination to help remained firm. One night, after another unsuccessful attempt to bring Buddy home, Leo found himself scrolling through social media. The image of the dog patiently waiting on the road even in the cold haunted his thoughts. That's when an idea came to him. Leo took out his phone and began to compose a message. He shared Buddy's story, highlighting his incredible constancy and loyalty. He described his attempts to help him and how Buddy always returned to the road. Leo added several photos he had taken of Buddy, with his golden fur shining in the sun and his eyes expressing both melancholy and hope. The post began to attract attention, touching people's hearts. They started sharing the story of the faithful dog, and reactions and comments full of empathy and concern began to multiply. However, nothing could have prepared Leo for the message he received that night. The message was from a woman named Clara, who claimed to be a neighbor of Buddy's original owners. She had recognized him through a series of shared messages. Clara shared the tragic story. Buddy's original owners had died in an accident on the same road 4 years ago. Somehow, Buddy had made his way there, perhaps following the scent, perhaps guided by some instinct, and had been waiting for them ever since. Clara also revealed the dog's true name, which was Brown. Leo, with the message echoing in his heart repeatedly, whispered a sincere, "I'm sorry, Buddy," while patting Brown's head. "I'm really sorry." Despite the pain, Clara's revelation brought new determination. Now he understood the dog, his loyalty, and his weight. Although he couldn't bring back the original owners, maybe he could do more for his canine friend. Leo contacted Clara, sharing his concerns and hopes regarding Brown. Promptly, Clara suggested an approach they hadn't considered before. Perhaps Brown needed to close this chapter of his life, just like we humans. The original owners of Buddy are buried in the local cemetery. Maybe if you take him there, Brown will understand that they won't come back anymore, Clara suggested. Although the idea seemed a bit unusual, Leo considered it logical. After all, dogs have an incredibly keen sense of smell and are very sensitive to their surroundings. Who knows, by visiting the graves of the original owners, Brown might somehow feel their presence in that place of eternal rest. The next day, Leo took Brown to the local cemetery. They walked among the tombstones until they reached the spot indicated by Clara. Leo knelt beside the grave, petting Brown while explaining that it was the resting place of the original owners. Brown seemed to understand. He remained silent next to the grave for a long time. Then, slowly, he lay down beside the grave, his head resting on his front paws, and began to whine in a way that Leo couldn't hold back the tears. Feeling deeply moved by his canine friend's reaction, Leo said, "You are the most loyal dog I've ever known. I'm sure your owners felt very lucky to have you." While petting Brown, they spent the afternoon there in silence, under the shade of the old trees in the cemetery. When night fell, Leo stood up and gestured for Brown to follow him. This time, however, Brown didn't go back to the road. Instead, he followed Leo to his house and, for the first time, crossed the threshold of the door. That day marked the beginning of a new life for the Golden Retriever. He found not only peace regarding his past but also a new family. Leo, in turn, discovered a companion who taught him the value of loyalty. Although he never forgot the original owners, Brown could finally close that painful chapter of his life. They began a new one, full of love and care, all thanks to the persistence of someone who had compassion for him and took an interest in helping him after 4 years when no one else did. The emotional story of Brown and Leo reminds us of the incredible connection we can have with our four-legged friends. It's a powerful reminder of how compassion and perseverance can change lives. If you enjoyed it, don't leave without leaving a comment, liking the video, and sharing it with someone. It helps me continue bringing emotional stories like this to you. Now, I want to know what would be your attitude in this situation. Leave in the comments what feelings this story aroused in you.